Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to EML. You are joining us here in the F2 tier. We are hitting round 9 of Season 5, and the track the guys will be racing around today is the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. A very exciting classic track, which is definitely going to give us some exciting racing and exciting action. I'm your host, Lesty, as has been for most of the season. I wasn't here last week, but I'm back now. But someone who was here last week, who is joining me alongside, is Adrian.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to have you back in your role as commentator. And at this new track, it'll be interesting to see how the drivers manage. Lots of excellent drivers on this grid, 9 different teams, of course, 18 drivers, and a whole lot of fun ahead.
Certainly a whole lot of fun ahead indeed. Before we get into the laps, Adrian, why don't you, I'm not sure how much of last week you remember, but give us a quick rundown of what happened last week in Brazil.
Yeah, so we had TF10 and CPI sort of being the main protagonists for the win. Riley McKay driving for TF10 on that occasion, although I don't see him in this lobby. Actually, neither of the CPI drivers from last week are there either, but it ended up coming down to really a three-way fight for the win between 2 CPI drivers, Luke and someone else whose name I admittedly forget, as well as Riley McKay, as I mentioned, in the TF10 AlphaTauri. And towards the end of the race, it was a good battle, but it came down to Luke and Riley McKay, and it ended up in a drag race to the line, in which Riley McKay for TF10 took the victory.
Lovely roundup, thank you, Adrian. Yeah, it was just over a tenth that he won the race, so very, very close finish back in Brazil. So on to tonight. Here we have Philip of IRT. He is the man who will be setting the first timed lap, the time to beat for the rest of the grid, as he is making his way round this very fun and classic track in Italy. Personally, I enjoy racing this track, Adrian. I'm not sure what places of this track what excites you.
I mean, it's one of my favorite tracks to drive. Actually, I love the there's something about the curb design that's aesthetically pleasing, and really just the way you can attack the curbs, but the sausage curves mean you have to still stay within limits, is just so entertaining for me. And I think the variety of corners, sure, you've got a few chicanes, but you've got lots of slow and high-speed corners in there, Aqua Minerale among them. It's a lot of variety, and it's a lot of fun to drive with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's some really different corners here, a lot of fast-speed corners as well. As VR Snipes goes fastest with 113.9. But yeah, definitely a very fun track, a very tight track actually. Difficult to pass in places, but plenty of places to pass though. So it's got a bit of both around here. But we should get some really, really good racing action from the F2 tier tonight, as Kogotski now goes top with a 113.8 for CPI. RVL Lorenzo comes up to line for RVL. He only goes 9th fastest. Time to find for him. I see a TF10 man of 8 coming up to the line, but his teammate ahead of him, Skyline, goes fastest, 113.7. What can his teammate 8s do? It's going to be a 14.1, 4 tenths off of his teammate, and the times are starting to roll in.
Yeah, lots of very quick times being set here already. The TF10 boys doing a good job already. I believe this is only their 3rd round, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Correct.
And yeah, they've been right on the pace all 3 of those rounds. So we'll see if that continues today. I believe they've gotten a podium in Netherlands, was it, and a win in Brazil. So we'll see if they can keep that streak up. But of course, CPI now champions, are they not?
Champions, yes. Champions
So,
on top of the table, so they are the team to beat in these final 2 rounds. They don't have anything to prove, but the team to beat nonetheless.
yeah, so clearly, I'd say those for me are the two teams to beat. Everyone else, if you ask me, they should be gunning to beat TF10 and CPI today. But already, of course, TF10 and CPI sharing the front row already. But WOR and IRT not far off in 3rd and 4th, 13.9 for both of them. The provisional poll at the moment, of course, at 13.7 and a 13.8 for provisional front row. So packed very close together among that front group.
Yeah, already those first times are very close together. I'm sure we'll see a couple attempts more shaved off that pole time. I can already see it with at least a quarter of the grid still to set a lap. One of those being the WOR driver of Anru, currently about to start his first time lap. He's got a whole free track to himself pretty much, apart from a few drivers coming out now. Hopefully they don't get in his way. But as you said, CPI Esports champions on 320 points. They will be going up to F1 next season, battling out for the second place promotion spot. Is IRT and WOR having a mare here at the moment with my words, but IRT on 197 points, WOR on 177. So there's a 20-point gap between those two teams. Then comes LDL in 4th on 132, and they're closely followed by TGT in 5th on 131. So a really good battle there between LDL and TGT, so one to keep an eye on in this race, which could really come down to the wire. Then we've got LRN on 92 points, GT10 on 86 points, RVL on 81, Legacy, who are no longer here unfortunately, on 75, and Team TF10, who have obviously only been here for 2 or 3 races now, on 73 points, but gaining on those in front of them. So they'll be looking to propel themselves up the standings, as does WOR Anru in the qualifying standings. He goes 3rd fastest.
Yeah, really good lap there, 13.895, about half a tenth, just over half a tenth off of the front row. So I wonder if he'll be setting another lap, as we can see getting out of the way of some drivers, really everyone filing out onto track at the same time. So a lot of lap times will be set in just a few moments. I imagine this will be everyone's second last lap. Probably a lap being set now and then back into the pits, and with just a couple minutes left, coming out of the pits again and going for their final runs.
Yeah, so those with bankers will be coming out looking for improvements. The ones without a time will be looking to just get a time on the board, really, because you don't want to be going into that final run not having a single time on the board. One of those drivers is GT10 Lemac. Let's see what he can do in his Alpine as he's making his way now through the 3rd sector. It's a 49.5 sector. Did he just slow off there? No, I don't think he did. He's making his way through the traffic, coming down this downhill. Got to be hard on the braking, turning in really well, catching the apex, not too far out. Oh, and he's gone wide on the final last corner, and that's not a position you want to be in, Adrian.
No, he's going into the final runs with no lap time set. He's invalidated just at that last corner. So he really, it's all or nothing on that last run. So it becomes a question of, does he push as hard as he can, say, really, like, to an extreme all or nothing, or does he just set a sort of more calm lap where he doesn't necessarily fully push, but does, set at least a lap time? As that's a new provisional poll with Snipez going on top with a 113.603. So over a tenth out in front. That's a pretty solid lap time. I'm curious to see if anyone else will be able to beat that. For example, LRN Thomas coming across the line now, only up to 10th. So for the LRN team, that is not quite the position they'll want, but it's on its way to it. Although his teammate, that said, has invalidated a lap time, so not optimal for the LRN team.
No, definitely not. And I'm seeing a lot of people a lot of drivers invalidating their laps here as they're getting trying to get a second time or improvements on the board. The LDL pair finally get their times on the board. It's only 14th and 16th respectively for them. Julian is coming up towards the final turn. Can he keep it within the track limits? He does. Can he improve on that 113.9? He doesn't think he's going to, so he aborts that lap. Anyone else coming around the final turns? Skyline he's currently on an out lap. So let's see what he can do. The man that was on provisional pole. So he needs to find an answer to Snipes. So I think we'll stay with Skyline here, Adrian.
Yeah, through the first chicane, hitting all of the apexes really nicely. Hard braking, but strong turn in. Through the Villeneuve chicane now, it's pretty awkward through that first bit. You want to make sure the car doesn't get too loose through the second section as well. Up by just over a tenth. Up the hill now. It's a very fast left-hander coming up. You have to try and flick the car through it. He does so nicely, keeping it well within track limits. His teammate goes into second for the time being, but Skyline still improving as far as we know through Aqua Minerale. Nice traction out of there. That was really well managed. Up by 2/10 into this final chicane here. Managing to hit across all the curbs nicely. We'll see how he manages through the last couple of corners. Hard braking on the downhill here. About the 50-meter board, turns in. Looks like the car slid a little bit, but he keeps it in nicely. Hard on the gas out of the last corner. He's going to open up the DRS, keep it far to the right, and he only manages to take second, so he can't quite get ahead of Snipez. He's only on the front row.
Yeah, it's an improvement, but as you spotted, on that second last turn, had a bit of a drift with the rear. And it looks like that's what's lost him that small chunk of time, which would have put him into provisional pole, because by the time we got to the end of Sector 2, he was up enough to take provisional pole. So one very, very small mistake, which has cost him provisional pole, and he's going to have one shot left to try and respond to Snipes. But TF10 looking good at the front, both drivers up there, but Snipes currently holding both of them off. So here we go. Everyone's in the pits. Some are even out already. Philip's already out on his final attempt, and this is it now. You've got to make it count, Adrian.
Yeah, it's it's high stakes here, and especially for the IRT boys, who are, of course, fighting for second in the championship, I believe you said. So they will be doing everything they can to get ahead of the WOR guys, who, of course, are first and sixth. So Snipez really doing everything he can for WOR at the moment. Of course, no points handed out for qualifying, but it's always helpful to be up towards the front of the grid. Someone who's starting 17th or 18th would be severely disadvantaged compared to someone who starts on pole. So we'll see if Philip can put himself in the better of those two locations.
Yeah, Philip does improve. It's up to 6th place. Whether he's going to stay there or not is another question, because there is the rest of the field still to put in their last and final attempt at this really fun and tricky track. But that's Philip done. His teammate Julian, we'll have to see what he can do. He's actually on his out lap, so he's preparing to get going. But as you said, WOR looking good with Snipes in first, Anaru in 7th, but still a lap to be had for him. So it's an intriguing battle there. The other battle we're obviously looking at is for 4th place. TGT currently 1 point behind LDL, but LDL currently sitting 14th and 16th, whereas TGT, Jordan and Young Tug 9th and 12th. So they're currently winning the battle in terms of qualifying here. So LDL need to respond in these final runs as Julian does get his lap started. I'm not sure that he's the first one out on track, so we'll find whoever's first.
I think it's Yarmo.
Is it Yarmo? Yarmo? Yep. You are correct, Adrian. It is Yarmo. So currently, respectively, out of everyone who's done a time, Yarmo is last of those. GT10 Lamac, obviously the one driver who has not set a time, so he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders, especially with his teammate Quartz up in 5th place. So he needs to really pull one out of the bag to help his team. Is Yarmo going to somehow stay in the lines there? I really thought he had drifted out, but what's he going to manage on this final run? It's up to P9. I think he'll be pretty happy with that.
Yeah. That's Julian getting a 5-place grid penalty for illegal blocking. So that's not what IRT will have wanted now. And with Yarmo in 9th, just behind Julian, he's effectively in 8th now. So I think, the LRN driver should definitely be happy with that in the Ferrari there. We'll see how far down he falls down the grid, if at all. We'll see, surely more drivers improving, so we'll see if they can get ahead of him.
Yeah, that's an interesting penalty. Not sure if that's a valid one, so we could be preparing for a lobby restart, but we'll focus on that after the session. Anru for WOR is coming up towards the line, currently P7, and he abandons, doesn't think he's going to improve. Quartz is starting his life. Snipes is actually coming up to the line. Is he going to improve? He does. It's even faster. It's into the 0.5s. So he pushes the target even higher for the rest of the grid. And the first man to challenge that will be TF10 8s. Can he keep it within the lines? He just about does as well. I don't know how some of these drivers are doing it, but they are managing it. 8s coming up to the line. Goes fastest with a 5.42.
Yeah, that's a really impressive lap time. We'll see if anyone else can match or beat it. His teammate Skyline has invalidated his lap time, so it won't be him. We'll see, is there anyone else? GT10 Quartz runs wide at Aqua Minerale. I can't see anybody else who's really flying along at a pace that could beat him, so I think it's fair to say it's going to be TF10 8s on pole.
Yeah, rightly said. A lot of people invalidating on these final runs. One of those not invalidating is LDL Lola. I think he'll be our last man across the line with a time and props himself up one position ahead of Gaitans into P14. But there we go. 8s coming up with a response to Snipes, who improved on his provisional pole time. The 8s is the man to take pole at the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix here in F2. So well done to him. A very, very good lap. I did think we were going to see drivers getting into the 0.5s, and we managed to get 2 of those. So it's 8s on pole and Snipes alongside him with 8's teammate Skyline in 3rd. CPI Kogotsky is in P4. It's very tight for the rest of the field. It's a really, really good session. And in terms of the battle for P4 in the championship, TGT are winning that battle at the moment. 11th and 12th for their drivers, and 14th and 18th respectively for LDL. So that's one that we'll have to keep an eye on in the race to see how those get on. But a good session, Adrian.
Yeah, a very entertaining qualifying session there. Just 8s just taking pole position right at the end. And I'll let you run through the grid if you'd like to.
Yeah, it's 8 on pole with Snipes in second, Skyline in third, Kogotsky in fourth, GT10 Quartz takes up 5th place. Then comes Philip and Anru in 7th, IRT Julian in 8th with Yarmo in 9th, and CPI Simon rounding up the top 10. Then it's TGT Jordan and Young Tug in 11th and 12th, Thomas and Lolo 13th, 14th, Gaitans in 15th, Lamac in P16 with Lorenzo and Lapiche starting on the back row.
And of course, the mandatory question for you now, Lesty. Who do you think will win the race?
Oh, wow, you're pinning it on me here, Adrian. Right, let me have a think. Just so the viewers know, actually, we are having a restart due to that penalty. We know how this game is. Sometimes it does give penalties than about blocking, illegal blocking in qualifying. So we have seen the proof of that, and it's confirmed there was no illegal blocking happening. So we will get a restart of this lobby, of this race. So sorry about that, guys. It will only take us 5 minutes to get this race up. But in terms of your question, Adrian, I think as some of the guys that are still here will be doing a practice start here, so this one doesn't actually count at the moment, unfortunately. So if some of these guys are having a good start, I'm sorry to say it's not going to count. It's nice to see them go ahead though, but there we go, a few spins in that first corner, so hopefully not of what's to come.
Yeah, it'll be hopefully a bit of a cleaner start with the real thing, but for the time being, not a disaster to see this kind of stuff happening. I'd imagine there will be some pretty dirty driving further back, but in this context, I think that's all right.
Yeah, it's fine. Get a bit of contact, get a bit of anger out. There we go. They're flying about. It's always fun to see when some of these drivers who usually are really trying to keep it stuck on the road and keep it nice and clean. Nice to see them just get a bit of a different side of them out. There's some of them here. The piece is driving backwards. They're skilled. These things. But
they know how to control the car.
They do. Taking people out is a skill. It's not easy. But yes, sorry. Yeah, back to your question. I believe I'm going to go with Skyline, even though 8 has pole. I think Skyline will come through and take the win. Kogotsky of CPI is very strong in races. I think he'll come out with P2. And then, God, I'm going to go with a more rogue one than the teams that we sort of usually mention. I think one of the GT10 boys, I think Quartz, who's starting about 6th or so in that region, I think he'll take the final podium position. But I will bounce that question straight back to you, Adrian.
Naturally. Yeah, I think for me it's got to be the. I think Snipes would be my prediction. It's really hard to say, having not seen their race pace yet, of course. But Snipes is probably my top prediction. TF10 guys on the podium. Hard to say which one we will see, but I think we'll only see one of those two. And I have no idea who will take the third place. No, honestly, I have no idea who will take the third one. Never mind.
It's hard. It's hard to predict these things. You just don't know. It's just a form of luck, really, and who you just think looks good around the certain track, or drivers you know that are quite consistent in race pace. So it's not an easy one to predict.
Yep. But well, I can tell you
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Jarmo took first, having gotten through just over a lap with Julian second. They're the only two who actually made it through a lap. He was 24 seconds ahead apparently, but he still came second. And then Lorenzo rounded out the podium in the Demolition Derby.
Nice, well done to those three drivers. You guys are great at smashing people up on the track and surviving. I haven't actually looked at any of the comments. Sorry, guys, tuning in. We do appreciate you joining us here this evening for some F2 action. If you are waiting to see a bit of action, you can pop over for only about 5 minutes to the F1 stream, where those guys are up and running, I believe, in their race. But after 5 minutes, make sure you come back, because this is really where all the fun and excitement and the great tight, close racing happens. So, and let's be honest, me and Adrian are great fun. So, why would you want to miss out on our commentary?
Exactly. We're better than anyone else here. Just the best commentators in the league, of course.
Hands down, hands down. I'll say that. I'll say that with chest every day of the week. But yeah, good evening, Nathan. Mr. Hollywood says TGT for the win. Title says this is F1. Yes, I may have made a mistake in the title, but we'll leave it. Val says let's go GT10. There seems to be a fair amount of support for the GT10 lads in here, so welcome all. Someone, Diavel, says Lemac will win. And he's starting a fair way back, so let's see what he can do. Oxiol says let's go RVL. It'd be great to see those guys have a good result. Actually, I feel like they've had a tough season in their debut season here in EML. But Diavel says no, Lemac was a joke. But he hopes. Okay. We'll pin all your hope on GT10 Lemac. Lemac, if you're listening in, no pressure at all. Honestly, no pressure. But yeah, guys, tuning in, please do like the stream. It really helps us, makes me and Adrian happy if you do that. We've got 6 likes currently. If we can boost that up, that'll be amazing. Also, subscribe to League Racing TV so you don't miss out on any of the EML races. We are on round 9, so we've only got the finale round left next week. But still, subscribe to the channel. It helps us. It helps you guys not miss out on the action. And do give us some comments, some predictions. We love to read these out. We've given you our predictions, so do get involved. Have a bit of chat with us and let us know what you think is going to happen, who's going to win, who's going to get on the podium, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and lots of French in the chat as well. I, of course, I know how to speak French, so I can read that. So bonjour à tout le monde qui parle en français ici. C'est bon à vous voir. But good to see everyone in both languages. A bit of a bilingual chat here, which is pretty cool, I have to say.
I wish I could do that. I wish I could just jump into another language. But that is very good. Yeah, especially as GT10 is a French team, so they'll love that. Yeah, we're seeing the French. Vive les Français in the chat.
Yeah. I suppose it makes sense they're our team then, GT10, if they're a French team. Don't know if that was coincidence or intention, but it's pretty nice either way.
Yeah, it's a very good matchup there. Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying Quartz to get podium here, so I'm with the French. Although Quartz has got an English flag here, so I think there's an English driver within the French team.
And their other, sorry, no, I'm looking at the wrong guy. Lemac is French as well, it seems, as well as the team. I was looking at one of the GT10 guys by accident, thinking, the other guy has just like a worldwide flag, but no, but GT10, not TF10. That's slightly confusing, having 10 in both of those, but it's It's a lot of very cool teams here. I have to say, I'm pretty new to the whole league racing with esports teams as the different teams personally, and it's a really cool thing. It's you really get to see the best of the best drivers in a league like this. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've always said I've been here. A lot of these guys will know I've been here for maybe 3 seasons now or so. And yeah, you get to see some of the best drivers who are trying to make that step into the actual esports world of the actual F1 teams. Some of which we've seen here and gone on. Not in F2 probably, but in F1, you would have seen some drivers compete in past EML seasons that are now actually racing for an official esports team. But yeah, some of these teams have raced in EML for a long time. IRT have been long-standing members of EML, CPI as well. Not sure about the rest of the teams here. I think they're fairly new compared to IRT and CPI, but they're all great teams within their own rights.
Yeah, it's really excellent getting to see all these guys with the different teams. I've seen a few of these teams in different leagues, but not all of them. I've seen, for example, IRT. I've seen in some other leagues just some of their drivers. I don't think they're competing for IRT just as a team or just as a driver. Sorry, but yeah, some really great teams here. Like I said, so. And Quartz is from Belgium, apparently, so that's a French-speaking place. I believe they speak French. Flemish, is it as well? So, Belgium's a cool place.
Yeah, I've never actually been to Belgium. I've driven through Belgium, if that counts.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think I went there on vacation when I was about 10 years old once, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely a country I'd like to actually visit instead of driving straight through it. Don't really get to experience much. But definitely a country that's on the bucket list. And not too far from where I am. A bit further from you, but you've managed to get to Belgium.
Yep. Well, it was only because my uncle lived there, admittedly, but speaking of European countries, I think it's time to get some racing underway in Italy.
Yes, yeah, we are loading back in. Thank you everyone for your patience. Sometimes this game just has a mind of its own. We can't really control it, but we deal with it, and we deal with it pretty quickly. So we will be bringing you the action very, very soon. As you can see, the countdown is starting now. The guys will be getting their setups, their strategies done, and then we will be under green flag racing.
Yeah, I have to say this is probably the best organized lobby restart I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, that's down to Phil. Thanks again, Philip, for hosting. So he's sorted this out for us, got the lobby sorted, got everyone in their correct grid positions, so we're all good to go. It's overcast, I believe, possible rain towards the end. If I look through the chat, let's have a look. Yeah, possible rain towards the end of this one, so a safety car or two may push us into having that rain coming, which, Adrian, that could add a lot of spice to this.
Yeah, this track is difficult enough in the dry. I can't even imagine driving at this pace in the wet. It's got to be so slippery. So, especially with the crossover point between dries and intermediates, it'll be really interesting to see how these drivers manage that.
Yeah, traction isn't the easiest here, but the guys are going to have to get on with it as we've got 5 red lights. And away we go. Ace seems to scramble away from the line. It's a long run down to turn 1. He seems to still have the run on Snipes. Snipes looking around the outside. He's not going to go for it. 8 goes deep. Are we going to get through turns 1 and 2? Pretty clean. A little bit of bashing there, but everyone still facing the right way. 8 still in control. Kogotsky has made a move on Skyline. Skyline's still trying to stay with him, but he's got to worry about Quartz, who's coming around the outside, and someone else, Anru, up the inside. It's 3 abreast here with these 3 teams. Is Quartz going to get ahead of these 2? He has. He's got the pace. Skyline is dropping back. Not a great start for Skyline, Adrian.
No, it's down a few positions already, but a good start for Kogotsky and for Quartz, both up a position or 2. So that is exactly what they will have wanted. Yeah, both up a position each, and Skyline down 2 positions. So Andrew as well up a position, Philip down 1. Lots of overtaking on this first lap, and 8's already with a half a second lead over Snipes. So good start for the TF10 driver. Snipes will be trying to chase him down, but it won't be easy.
No, it won't be easy at all. Obviously, no DRS in these first 2 laps. We have to wait until we get to lap 3 for any DRS. So we may not see too many moves down here into turn 1, but we are seeing a move actually from Yarmo, who overtakes CPI Timon and takes P9. Nice move down that straight. And Simon has got the other LRN driver coming past him. It's Thomas making his way. Those guys on the medium, CPI Simon on the hards, obviously not finding the pace so far on these hards early on. The mediums will be a bit faster, but the hards will only take a few laps until they get up to speed.
Yeah, and Simon already under pressure from Jordan behind for the Aston Martin TGT. So a little bit of contact through Aqua Mineral. The overtake as he's struggling for traction out of the chicane. We'll see maybe into turn 1 an overtake being made potentially, but it's hard to say. Lots of people close together throughout the field.
Yeah, everyone's still very tightly packed as 8 continues to hold the fastest lap. And not on this straight though. Obviously the only DRS section on the Emilia Romagna circuit, as we're seeing more movement again further back. CPI Simon and Jordan obviously had a look, wasn't able to make it stick, and CPI Simon continues in P11. Further ahead, Philip is having a look at WOR Anru, as IRT and WOR continue to battle it out, obviously battling it out for second place in the standings. So this is a fight that Anru needs to stay ahead of, as he's got both IRT drivers right on his heels. So an interesting one to keep an eye on in these early stages. Yeah,
and really everyone so close together. Nobody's fallen back from the pack yet, which is good news for everyone, really. It means everyone still has a bit of a shot. And yeah, I have to say, you mentioned it before the race started, but it is really looking overcast right now. So I think everybody will be considering what might happen next in terms of the weather, as Quartz setting the fastest lap of the race so far on the hard tires, interestingly. So some people managing those hard tires well, Quartz among them, as that top 3 is. So that's Kogotsky looking at a move on Snipes. He doesn't go for it, but into the Villeneuve chicane, they're close together. So that top 3 is pulling away ever so slightly, but given Quartz got the fastest lap of the race on the last lap, he is closing in on that top 3.
Yeah, Quartz, we haven't seen too much of him. We've seen a fair few top 10 finishes from him, but nothing towards the podium end of the results. But today he really does look in the mood to be getting a podium or more here in these early stages, in the first 4 laps. As you said, those hards looking good for him, looking good for 8, but others not looking so well. We've already got 2 drivers on penalties, Gaitans and Thomas, joining him with a 3-second time penalty. Obviously track limits are quite tough round here, especially the last 2 turns where you really got to nail it. If you drift a little bit wide, you're over that white line. But here we go, top three going 3 wide down towards turn 1. Snipes just getting ahead and pushing Kogotski towards the edge of the racetrack, but Snipes comes out on top. But it's not all done for Kogotski. Ace is honestly pushing that Red Bull car around this circuit at the moment. Is he going to look for a move, or is he going to stick with it? No, he's going to stay as it is, and these three are all over each other, especially Kogotski and Eights.
Yeah, and Eight's losing 2 positions in 1 corner there, so the hards, wonder if it was the hards or just the DRS for the drivers behind, but Snipes already pulling away a little bit in the lead, up to about half a second, 6/10, 7/10 even, out of Aqua Minerale. So that Alfa Romeo is pulling away already. We'll see if that continues or if Kogotski can keep with him. But it's certainly a little bit of a noticeable gap there already. I think Snipes will be safe into turn 1 this lap, potentially, but could be touch and go towards the braking zone. And yeah, you mentioned Quartz. We haven't seen a ton of him this season, although Brazil, if I remember correctly, was pretty good for him. He was in the fight for the top position, so I don't remember being the best result in the end. I feel like the race possibly involving him, I'm not sure.
So Quartz could do with a bit of extra luck on this round, as Anru gets very close to Skyline, actually loses the back end a little bit, and that invites Philip down the inside. It's a nice move. There's a bit of contact though, and that loses the traction for Philip and loses a bit of time on the WR rival, and Anru stays in P6. That's heating up as Philip gets all out of shape, touching the outside curb there on the exit, but manages to keep that car, that Mercedes car, facing forwards, as there's another penalty. Both LRN drivers now with a penalty, as Yarmo picks up at 3 seconds. But as you said, yeah, earlier, it's getting dark. It's definitely got darker since the start of the race, and we've only had 6 laps. TF10 Dirk in the chat makes an interesting point. Some of these guys on the hards might be looking to make it to when the rain is predicted to come, and the guys on the mediums just looking to keep to a normal strat, as Ace is going for the move on Kogotski up front. They're side by side into turn 1. Snipes is just ahead. Up the inside goes Ace. He takes 2nd place off Kogotski. There was a bit of movement further back. I don't know if you saw it, Adrian.
Yeah, just Skyline and Julian still battling even now into the 2nd chicane, as Julian, I believe, retaking the position, possibly. Unless, I feel like Skyline actually might have dropped a few positions, I'm not entirely sure. But definitely some battling further back with the 2 IRT drivers. And I wanted to point out on the last lap and this lap too, just looking at him, Philip seems to be struggling for traction quite a bit, so I wonder, surely the mediums aren't already wearing out. I wonder if perhaps even tire temps might be pretty high here today, at least for Philip, and presumably then for others as well, potentially, as Anru, the driver in front of him, gets a time penalty, and Philip once again with a huge snap of oversteer out of the chicane. So, interesting. I think potentially tire life and longevity might not be the only thing to consider with the tires today.
Definitely not something
Eight's going for the lead.
Exactly, Eight's going for the lead. Snipes is going to have to try and fight back. He's not going to have an answer without any DRS. He's going to have to be wary, because Kogotski's going to go up the inside with the DRS. Gets the move done, but Snipes is coming back at him. He's held on really well and managed to keep hold of that 2nd place. Well driven there from Snipes. Quartz is right on the back of Kogotski. Not going to be able to make a move though. And these 4 up front are getting brave with the moves, as TF10 Skyline now picks up a penalty as well. These are big penalties if you think about the gaps that we've got currently on track. It's gonna lose a few positions, as Quartz is the latest man to get a penalty. They're flying in at the moment, Adrian.
Yeah, and a lot of drivers, as you say, picking up penalties, but you also rightfully mentioning the gaps. There's such small gaps. There's only one driver who's over 3 seconds behind the driver in front of them, and that's Young Tug over 3 seconds off of LRN Thomas, so that's just a gap between the top 10 and the bottom 10. Otherwise, you're guaranteed to lose a position to the car behind if you have a penalty at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. It's so tight here. We don't obviously know what's going to come further in this race. We'll just have to wait and find out. Are we going to get some rain? Is it going to stay dry? Well, you'll all have to find out by staying tuned into this one, as we're seeing some moves further back, as Philip and Andrew are actually exchanging places, but I believe Lamac has got ahead of Gaitans, or Lolo maybe just got ahead of Lamac, as LDL look to fight back towards TGT, and Lolo has the two TGT boys in his sights up ahead, so he'll be working to bring that 2.2 second gap down, as they will be fighting out for P4 in the standings and need to really finish this race ahead of the rival team.
Yeah, and so that group definitely battling behind, but not in the top 10 currently. Although GT10 Lamac getting ahead of Lolo, so Lamac making some progress there, up to 13th. Meanwhile, up in front, it looks like things are splitting up a little bit more between that top 4. 8's definitely trying to pull out of the DRS range of Snipes, but Snipes not letting that happen yet. As Kagowski not far behind, and Quartz still keeping touch with this top 3, though as before, just not quite within striking distance, as the big group is right behind him.
Yeah, you are correct. It seems to have calmed down slightly in this lead pack. Obviously, top 9 within a second, apart from Philip to Quartz. So they have really broken away. Thomas is just off the back in P10, and then you've got the two TGT boys in a world of their own at the moment. And then you have the rest of the field with Lolo leading those. Obviously has got back ahead of Lamac, so that is going to give him a bit more of a boost, as he will try and bring down that gap to Young Tug ahead of him. 9 laps in. What state are these mediums going to be in here? How long are we going to see these guys running the medium tyre for?
Yeah, it's hard to say. We've seen some drivers struggling on them already for a few laps. Others seem to be going quite well on them. Snipes, for example, only a couple tenths off of 8's at the moment. He's managing the mediums quite well, but 8's, of course, on the hards is ahead, which speaks well to the hards at the moment. He's doing quite well there, but yeah, it's hard to say really. I think some of them might be wearing out a little bit more than others, as I think I missed Andrew must have gotten ahead of Philip, because I think Philip was ahead a moment ago, as Andrew actually just the rear end floating out a little bit there on the left-hander before Aqua Minerale. But these two still locked in battle, the WOR driver and the IRT driver. I believe you said earlier they're fighting for the second promotion spot in the championship?
Correct, yes.
So yeah, that's it's high-stakes battle between the two of them for 5th position, but Snipes doing everything he can for WOR, still in 2nd. And it's a pretty big gap between Snipes and 8's going onto this onto the pit straight, as that's another penalty in this race, this time for the LDL driver of Lapiche.
Yeah, 8's looking pretty comfortable. Snipes obviously still within the DRS, but not close enough to be able to make a move into turn 1. Skyline and Simon are going to be battling away through turn 1, and I believe Simon hasn't been able to make the move on Skyline. Skyline has defended that pretty well, and if I'm not mistaken, I might be mistaken, but I thought I was seeing rain. It might just be my eyes, but on Simon's car I thought I saw rain. It may just be me. Don't freak out, everyone. It might just be my eyesight. Maybe it's me wishing for some rain, but maybe not. I'm not seeing any forms of rain at the moment. But it's getting darker, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I do think you were seeing things maybe, but that often happens to me as well, especially when I'm driving. Almost always a lap or two before it actually starts raining, I always start to think I'm seeing raindrops, and then I actually see them and I go, oh yeah, I was just imagining what I was seeing earlier. This is actual rain. So, oh, is Andrew into the pits actually? Off of the hard tires. We'll see what he does there. But definitely rain soon. See what Andrew does. He's putting on the mediums, it looks like. So that's an interesting strategy call there, especially if it is going to rain soon. We'll definitely want to keep an eye on the cars. You can always see rain droplets on the cars as soon as it starts. But that's an interesting one.
Yeah, interesting one if rain is due soon. I mean, that tells me that it's not coming as soon as we may think. But still, only 12 laps on those hard tyres. As Kugotsky has actually had a good run up Aquamillerano, but he's not going to get a run on Snipes. Just going to be ever closer to the gearbox of that Alfa Romeo, as Snipes is now actually outside of the DRS to 8, so Snipes could be in a bit of trouble going down to turn 1, as Kugotsky is virtually pushing him around these final turns. So we'll go on board, but Snipes dives into the pits. He's had enough of those medium tyres, and he is going to swap out for what I'd assume is going to be a pair of hards, as we see Philip come in as well. So a few pit stops coming in now.
Yeah, and I'd say what Andrew pitting onto the mediums might imply is that the mediums might even be able to go for almost 20-odd laps here. We've got just under 20 left, so it's not impossible to think that he might be going to the end, but I'd say 20 laps on the mediums is going to be a stretch, but not impossible. I believe I have seen it done before, so these guys might be taking their one and only pit stop from this race. We'll see if that pays dividends at the end, as Simon picking up a penalty now as well. Seems the majority of drivers have penalties.
Yeah, at least half the grid, I believe, now has a penalty. So if you do not have a penalty, you might want to focus on not gaining one before the checkered flag, because it could really benefit you come the end of this race. So those drivers without one will be looking to keep it that way, as we see Eights, our race leader, come into the pits as well. So we're seeing a lot of people now. This has just triggered a lot of people to respond to others, as Skyline is going to make a move on Julian, nice and easy with the DRS, puts himself up into second place on track, as Kugotsky has crashed out, retired from the race. He's not crashed out, he's retired in the pits.
I think he might have accidentally put on the mediums and realized he's screwed up. Not the mediums, sorry, the intermediates, because he is on the intermediates as it stands. And no rain coming down as of yet, so I wonder if he had maybe set his tires to the intermediates and forgotten to change it back before its pit stop.
It does look like Kugotsky has made the mistake of going onto the intermediate tyres too early, and probably just getting his tyres ready for when it does rain. So big mistake there from Kugotsky, and one that he's totally not happy about, and he's retired from this race. Shame to see, because he was up there in that top 4 battle. So that blows a place open for the podium, because he was currently occupying on track a podium position. So big shame for Kugotsky. He'll be annoyed with himself for that one. I'm sure he'll be reeling. But these things sometimes happen. You try and get your strategies sorted out, and something just goes wrong. It's like wing damage sometimes. If you've only got a small bit of wing damage, if you don't set the repaired damage to yes, sometimes it just doesn't happen. But what will happen is Eights making a move on Snipes, and also Lemac at the same time. It's a double overtake, as Snipes actually also gets Lamac, who is on the old hard tyres. So 8's currently net race leader, with the rest of the guys up ahead still to pit.
Yeah, but I tell you what, interestingly, Snipes was ahead of him, so I wonder if the overcut is maybe a bit more powerful than the undercut. So these guys who are yet to pit, Quartz, for example, might be in a good position come his pit stop, but we'll see how that turns out. Might be the case that he's staying out too long for the overcut to work out, and he's just going to have to try and benefit from fresher tires come the end of the race. We'll see. He doesn't pull into the pits yet. I'm not sure if any of these hard runners will. We'll see in a moment when they all finish going by, although Thomas actually does go into the pits off of his mediums. So as Snipes battling with Yarmo here, and Andrew now as well. I wonder if Yarmo's going to pull into the pits. He doesn't. He would be double stacking if he does. But Andrew is going to try around the outside down the straight. It's going to turn into the inside if he can get alongside him again. But Yarmo pulling ahead on the straight. Slipstream, DRS, and ERS working in the Ferrari, the LRN driver's favor.
Yeah, this is a frustrating one for Andrew, because he's coming up against someone who's on 16 lap-old mediums, and he's now being held up. But there we go, Yarmo runs wide, and that's the invitation that Andrew needs, and he'll no longer be stuck behind that Ferrari, and he's free to now try and catch back up to his teammate of Snipes.
Yeah, and we'll see if he successfully does that, but of course Snipes has just fallen out of the DRS range of 8, so we'll see if 8 can keep pulling away, or if he'll fall back into the DRS range. Snipes actually gets himself a time penalty, so that could be really big come the end of the race, as 8 definitely looks like he's in prime position to lead and, I would say, take this win, but we have just under half of the race left, so it would be a bit of a stretch to be already claiming that.
Yeah, definitely. He's looking like the man to beat out there at the moment is 8. No penalty currently, and has bridged the DRS from Snipes and Andrew as well. But the WR pair will be ruling those mistakes and those penalties picked up, because Philip currently, where he is sat, will be jumping both of those drivers. So it's going to be big in that second place fight in the standings. But the top 5 here, I've only just realised these guys on the hard tyre must be holding out for the rain. So these guys really, really gunning it and hoping that the rain is going to come. Actually, though, Young Tug is being caught very fast, and 8 is now right behind him, and on the fresher rubber is going to make the move on the TGT driver. He's trying, but Tug seems to have a good bit of straight line speed, but up the inside does 8 go, and he actually forces Tug slightly off track. But that was always going to happen on such a tight corner, as 8 makes up another position. So is this a bit of a worry for 8? Does he need to sort of keep his foot down and start getting up towards these top 4, just in case that rain does come?
Yeah, I'd say they're either holding out for rain or soft tires, or both. Either way, definitely they are going to be much faster right at the end on such fresh tires. But nonetheless, I would say if I were in 8's position, I would not wanting to be lifting off at all. I'd want to be catching up to Simon, Julian, Skyline, and Quartz, because those 4, definitely strategically, if it does start to rain, those 4 are definitely in a really good position.
Yeah, they're in a great position. They've got a decent gap at the moment, those 4. Simon's got a gap of 7 seconds, as Philip is the latest man to get ahead of Young Tug, and Young Tug may just have to succumb to the pit stop at this point, because he's just losing places, place after turn after turn at the moment. But actually he is now in a bit of a gap where Jarno is now about 8 seconds behind, so no real danger of losing any positions within the next 2 laps or so. I keep jumping on board with drivers just to see if the rain has come yet, but still no sign. And with 12 laps left of this race, is this gamble going to pay off for these top 4? It's going to be hard to see as Lamac and Yarmo trade places down into turn 1, and that is for currently P10 as Lolo has left the session.
And
I think we have
spins.
we've got a spinner. Those 19 lap old mediums won't be feeling very good, will they?
No, that is certainly not optimal for the LRN driver, as Skyline picking up a penalty. So now the only driver in the top 4 not to have a penalty is Julian. Not sure if Skyline already had a penalty or if that's a second one, but I can check that quickly actually. That's a second penalty for him. So, yeah. So I looked at a driver and saw dirt on their side pod, thought it was rain for a moment, but it was not.
We're both on the lookout for the rain because we believe it's coming as Julian and Skyline trade places. I'm sure these two aren't really battling at the moment. They're probably just using each other's DRS to just keep propelling themselves further forward. As they know the guys on the fresh rubber, as Julian gets a bit out of shape there on the exit, as they know the fresh rubber guys behind are coming fast. 8's only less than 4 seconds now behind Simon, so if the rain's going to come, these guys need it to come pretty much now, otherwise they will be caught within the next lap or two, because 8's is really flying here. He's got a 2.5 second gap to Snipes now.
Yep, and Yarmo at the back of the grid putting on softs, so I'd say that's our first sign that maybe the softs are the tires that can make it to the end of the race from here. So I'd say, I think 11 laps on softs is definitely viable, so any of these top 4, when they finally crack, if they do, before the rain, I'd imagine any of those 4 may end up putting on a set of softs. But they do, at this point it's so extreme, they've definitely got to be holding out for the rain. But 8's, let's see, 8's is 7.5 seconds off of the lead, so what was Philip overtaking Andrew? And that'll be a net P3 for Philip now, so it's pretty good for the IRT driver. And of course with IRT and WOR fighting for that second promotion spot in the Constructors' Championship, in the Teams' Championship, that will be a pretty big overtake for them, I'd imagine.
Yeah, they're looking good, IRT. Both drivers without a penalty, and the top 3 drivers without penalties do include those two, so it's really looking good. Obviously Julian, one of the 4 drivers, braving it out and hoping for the rain or pushing to take on a set of softs at the end. I'm not sure if we maybe will see some movement now as 8's has actually caught up to Simon.
It's raining. It's raining.
It's raining. Oh, we've had contact. Simon and 8's have made contact. Simon's spinning around. I'm not sure whether he's tried to hold out the inside line and maybe been cut up a bit. It's hard to tell. But he will dive into the pits as Philip also dives in, as you can see, and Adrian has said, the rain is here.
Yeah, you can see rain on the driver's cars. It was Quartz runs wide. The driver's already struggling with grip now. The fronts are just losing temperature and grip here already. Everybody's going to be struggling, and I tell you what, Philip is in a brilliant position now, coming out of the pits on intermediates. I think it'll be properly, officially intermediate weather in just a moment. We'll see whether it works better for the drivers pitting at the end of this lap or the end of the previous lap. We'll see where Philip comes out compared to those he was close to. But I would imagine at the end of this lap we'll see Quartz, Julian, Skyline in at least. Those 3 who still need to pit. And I would imagine the rest of the grid as well, as 8's actually going ahead of Skyline. I wonder if that was intentional to avoid Eight's being held up in a double stack.
Definitely, you've got to, TF10 have got to prioritise 8 as he actually stays out. So they're not going to even double stack Skyline. So 8's deciding to stay out. We haven't seen DRS disabled yet, so it is still dry enough for the DRS to still be open. That's usually a good sign that it's into weather, into conditions. As we're seeing more penalties, obviously guys now struggling with grip a lot more, especially the ones on old tyres. This is really going to mix up the pack, as Ace is going to make a move on Julian. Julian really struggling on 23 lap old hards, and with wet conditions not going to be easy as Ace does make the move. Quartz still out in the lead, but these guys all yet to pit. The ones further back getting on the inters, getting ready for the rain to come down. The Skyline actually stays ahead of Philip, so I don't think Philip is making the ground up on the inter tyres at the moment.
But I tell you who is, Skyline definitely is. He's gaining very rapidly on Lamac now. Initially, when he went into turn 1, I thought he might have been losing time. I think that was due to the cold tires, but around the outside of Aqua Minerale, that's a really nice move. And Skyline might be in the best position here. I think Quartz either reacting to that or just independently deciding it's time to pit. But Eights looks like he's going to try and brave it out on the mediums for at least another lap. I wonder if he'll try to go to the end of the race. I wonder if they think it won't rain enough to be worth going on to the inters, or potentially they're just waiting until it is officially, as I've been saying, intermediates weather, which I would consider to be when DRS is disabled.
Yeah, they're definitely, these drivers are definitely holding out for that DRS disabled notification, which definitely just gives you the signal that now you really need to be on those inter tyres. As Skyline is flying though, if they have an engineer over there at TF10, they've definitely not communicated that Skyline on the inters is actually flying around the track at the moment, and it'd probably be a benefit for Eights to be on the inter tyre, because he's going to be losing time, and a man he doesn't want to lose time to is Julian, because he's the only driver, apart from Lorenzo, who's currently in a respectable P17, there's only 3 drivers here without a penalty.
Yeah, and Yarmo spinning again, but not retiring, not crashing into a wall or anything, as Eights is into the pits, so is Snipes, so is Andrew, so that'll be almost the entire grid on inters in just a moment. We'll see where Quartz comes out in comparison to those top 3. They waited longer. Andrew double stacked, so he's held up a little bit in the pit lane. Quartz going down the main straight. Eight's about to come out of the pits. I think it's going to be in Quartz's favor. Quartz past the leaders. Quartz is your new race leader. GT10 taking the lead. And that is looking really good as well for Julian, who's in second now.
Wow, so that extra lap has cost Eights here. Track position, obviously Quartz up front, but he has the time penalty, but he loses the position, as you say, to Julian, who does not have a penalty, but he's going to try and make amends to that. Looking up the inside, can't hold it on traction, and Julian stays ahead for now, but these two are the two to be focusing on. But Quartz, 2.2 ahead of Julian. He can make this 3-second time penalty work.
Yeah. For Quartz, yeah, like you say, 2.3 up the road, so he just needs to keep pushing, and he has a shot, but he loses a few tenths out of Aqua Minerale, so clearly traction not easy for anybody here. We'll see. Julian is, of course, in the net race lead with that with that penalty, but we'll see if that holds. Quartz at the moment would drop down to 3rd with that penalty, so he'll be really wanting to push away in this last 6 or so laps.
Yeah, definitely, which he's actually losing time as Eights now gets past Julian. Of course, the DRS is still enabled. Oh, there we go. Gone. It is now officially Inter's conditions. And LDL for some reason, are still on the dry tyre. That is going to be painful for them. These two are sticking it out as well. They haven't even come in. They've just got the DRS disable notification, and they have both decided to carry on still. Oh, this is going to be painful. That is going to be painful for the LDL pair. They've made a grave mistake there, which is going to cost them big time, I think.
Yeah, it's not looking excellent for them. As Eight's absolutely reeling in GT10 Quartz, so Quartz is not going to hold this lead much longer, I would think. And even if he does, he's got that penalty. I think Eights is, despite that brief moment of looking like his victory was at risk, I think Eights has put himself into an excellent position to take the win again. We'll see if he can get ahead of Quartz here, as so many people just picking up penalty after penalty now. I wouldn't be surprised to see Eights or Julian picking up one soon. Two of only 3 drivers yet to get a penalty. Lorenzo being the other one down in 16th, as there is movement as Snipes gets ahead of Skyline.
Yeah, a bit of movement there, and obviously WR earlier was saying they were going to struggle with their penalties, but everyone around them or behind them at least has penalties now, apart from obviously Lorenzo, who's further back. So it's not looking overly bad for WR here. They're only losing out to 1 IRT driver at the moment, so it's going to be tight. And how they do is Quartz goes wide and Eights runs into the lead. That is a nice open invitation for the TF10 driver, and he takes the lead of the race, as he has done for most of the race. And he's only got 4 or 5 laps left of this one to hold on to that race lead, and at the moment I don't think Quartz or Julian really have an answer to the TF10 driver's pace.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case, although the good news for Julian is that I checked the lap times and Eights is only 1 warning away from a penalty, while Julian is 2. So 1 mistake from Eights through a corner and it could be a penalty, which would at the moment put Julian in a net lead position. But Julian, it will be an uphill battle if he wants to stick with this top 2, especially Eights in particular, who has been so quick all weekend.
Yeah, he has. He's had a really, really good showing. Obviously taken pole position and has led a lot of this race. And now looking good, but that could cause a safety car maybe, but actually no, Lepiche stays facing forward, gets his car back on track, and is actually going to go into the pits. LDL boys, oh dear, you have had a bit of a rotter there in the decision making, but we'll go back ahead as Andrew actually picks up another penalty, as TGT Jordan also overtakes LRN Thomas for P9 on track. Obviously a lot of these positions may change upon the race finish due to the penalties and how many penalties drivers have, so everyone's not definitely safe where they are. They've got to keep the penalties low if they want to jump positions or stay in the positions that they have fought hard for, as Julian is now eyeing up a move on Quartz, heading down into turn 1. He's in the slipstream, got the battery going up the inside, and he's going to make the move nice and easy.
Yeah, Quartz not able to break as late as Julian there, so Julian pretty comfortably through into second position. Just over 3 seconds off of Eights, so Eights clearly with some excellent pace, both in the dry and in the wet here. We'll see if, that's one of the LDL drivers getting a penalty, Lepiche, who of course spun just a couple minutes ago. But these drivers really flying along in the wet, but it's as much as these drivers can manage to look pretty comfortable sometimes, driving in these kind of conditions, I'm sure a lot of these drivers will be on the edge of their seats, really trying to tiptoe around the track. Because traction, turn-in, braking, none of the driving is going to be easy right now.
No, definitely. A lot of these drivers will be fighting the cars and fighting the traction. The traction here around Imola is hard in the dry, let alone in the wet. So I do not envy these guys right now, and most of them, pretty much all of the grid, are doing a very good job in keeping their cars facing forwards. As Courts still holding third position, staying with Julian fairly well. He's got to be careful though. Snipes in his mirrors, only just under 2 seconds behind. Only also has a 3-second penalty, the same as Courts. So Courts needs to just stick with Julian here. Don't want to give Snipes any invitation and get himself up onto the podium. If he stays where he is happy up on that third step. For Courts on for a podium here, and it'll be a great podium.
There's a lot of lag going on with your voice right now, just so you know.
Apologies. You go ahead, Adrian. Then
that's all right. It seems okay for a moment now. We'll see if hopefully it keeps up being all right. But yeah, certainly the GT10 guys getting excited in French there for Quartz. De tour, mon gars, says one of them just last time. But this time round, it's 1 lap left, and he's right on the back of Julian, although, of course, with his penalty, I don't think he'll be able to take that position. But on this last lap, it is looking so good for Eights.
Yeah, as you said, Eights is looking very, very good here. He's built over a 5-second gap. He's just been completely on another level to the rest today. Not in terms of just completely blasting away, but he's just done everything right really today. Hasn't put a foot wrong. Yes, he stayed out on the mediums a bit longer when maybe we thought he should have gone on to the inters, but who are we to say that he was wrong in doing that? He is the man behind the wheel, and he's just got the last 2 turns to go. Keep it nice and tidy. Do not pick up a last turn warning. And here he comes up to the line. It's your Emilia Romagna Grand Prix race winner, TF108, who takes the checkered flag. Julian will come home for IRT with a brilliant P2, and Quartz does bring home P3 and finishes on the podium for GT10. France flags in the chat. Vive la France. Well done, Quartz. The man from Belgium bringing home the podium for the French team. Snipes fought valiantly to try and catch up to the Alpine man, but finishes in a respectful 4th place. Skyline, he'll be happy with a 5th place with a mixed bag of a race. Anru for WR picking up P6 ahead of the IRT rival of Philip in P7. TGT Jordan finishes P8 in what is a good result for TGT today, finishing 8th and 11th with Young Tug respectively ahead of the LDL boys. So the battle for 4th will go on to next week with TGT in the front running position as CPI Simon finishes P9. Thomas rounds up the top 10 for LRN. Well done to him. We mentioned Young Tug already. GT10 Lemac finishes P12. The RVL boys of Gaitans and Lorenzo 13th and 14th. Just not their day today, unfortunately. LDL, Lepiche and Lolo. Some crazy decisions to stay on those hards, as Lolo is actually coming up to the line still on those hards. Fair play to him. He's actually made it all the way round. And Yarmo is our last man to finish on track. He finishes up in 17th respectively, and CPI Kogotsky is our only retirement of the race, and that was just due to a wrong tyre choice in the pits, and Anru is given driver of the day by the game. What a race.
Yeah, that was really quite exciting, especially with the The rain right at the end, eights so quick throughout the entire race and through qualifying. Really, really excellent job from him today.
Yeah, couldn't have done much more of a better job there. I wonder if he actually got fastest lap as well. We'll be able to tell just in a moment. I've put some France flags in the chat to celebrate Quartz's P3 for them. So well done to them, and you can thank me as well for my prediction on the podium for Quartz. I could see it. I can see into the future. It's verified now.
Right. Yeah, congratulations to our podium finishers, and en français, félicitations à Quartz, c'est un bon résultat pour lui.
What Adrian said. But there we go. Philip does actually take the fastest lap for IRT, so they get an extra point there as well. So a good day for them. Good days and bad days mixed there, but Eights does finish as your race winner this evening. Before we look ahead to next week, Adrian, who's your driver of the day?
It's got to be eights for me. He was just on it all day long. I mean, there was not a single moment throughout that race where, based on pace, it looked bad for him. It only ever looked sort of not brilliant for him based off of strategy. His pace was so good, and he made the strategy work pretty well. Very briefly wasn't in the lead, but for the majority of the race was, and yeah, for me, he's the driver of the day.
Yeah, totally agree. He didn't put a foot or a wheel wrong today, so well done to him, Eights. Just to make it different, I think I will go with my driver of the day as Julian, picking up that podium, second place for IRT. That's going to be big in their fight for P2 in the standings. Strategy went well, went on to the inters at the right time, actually jumped eights as well, so put himself in a really good position to get that podium, worked hard to get back at Quartz, and I think overall he just got that race right, so well done to him. So Eights and Julian are our drivers of the day. And that was the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Thank you, Adrian, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed it. I know you were here for Brazil last week, but without me, I hope you enjoyed it more than you did with Indigo. But you don't need to say it for everyone. I already know it, so don't worry.
Yeah. Well, while we're publicly here, Indigo was better, but don't worry. When we're in private, I'll tell you the truth.
Jamie needs an ego boost, so we'll let him have it. But thank you again, Adrian. Everyone watching, thank you for joining and watching with us. Thank you for all your comments. It's been great to see the support for the teams coming in as well. Love to see the teams supporting their drivers in these races. If you haven't already, just before we go, like the stream before you leave. Really helps us. We've got 9 likes, so that is amazing. Thank you, guys. And make sure you subscribe to League Racing TV so you don't miss out on the finale next week. Same time, 8 p.m. Myself and Adrian will be taking you through that one once again to round off Season 5. And what a way to round it off. We are heading to the Las Vegas Grand Prix, racing down the strip of Las Vegas in the lights. What a finale that will be. So do join us next week, 8 p.m. Myself and Adrian will be there to take you through the finale of Season 5. Thank you once again for joining us. Have a great evening, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.